Hello, I am Sandra Lee, and this is Thursday Tips for Thriving. I am talking about memory and clear thinking. So I'm going to check the Facebook group to see if you have any questions that you post here as I am live. There we go. So if you have questions, stick them in the comments box there because I will be happy to answer them. I am talking about memory and clear thinking and how to support yourself in maintaining your mental function as you get older. Because I don't know about you, but I, like many people, have been starting to notice, oh, I'm not always remembering things, or I forget why I've gone into a room, or why have I opened the refrigerator, or am I looking for something in particular? So these are the kinds of things that are early signs that memory, the brain is not necessarily working as well as I want it to. And how do I support its continued function? That's what I am talking about today for a half an hour. So if you have questions, then let me know. I'm going to talk primarily today about food and lifestyle habits, lifestyle um, ongoing practices, ongoing routines that support continued brain function and that nourish and support the brain so that it continues to operate as well as it can throughout life. So, um, and it's actually been quite a while, number of years, that I've noticed sometimes not necessarily being so clear about why I'm doing something or forgetting someone's name, um, even though I know that I should know their name. And occasionally it even happens that I forget like a basic word. Like, how come I don't know this word? But it's like I'm just not pulling it up as readily as I think I should. And so to me, those are signs that my brain is not working as optimally as I would like. Now, this is considering that I already have a pretty good diet. The way I eat, you see, if you're seeing me on Facebook and you're on my profile, then you see every day I post a picture of my food. So, my food, I've got that pretty well handled. So, there are other things that maybe I'm not so good at. So, it's like I'll talk more about food in a little bit, but I'm going to tell you now where I know that I need to make the biggest adjustments. And for me, a big part of that is sleep. I am just not very good at getting myself to go to sleep by ideally 10 o'clock. And a lot of times that does not happen. I'm better about it than I used to be. That's for sure. But I know how important sleep is to um, guarding, protecting brain function throughout life, not just as I get into my 50s, because I'm in my 50s, but throughout life. So, habits that I had when I was in my 20s and 30s of staying up late were already impacting brain function over the long term. I just might not have noticed it because at that point, I was able to continue on, function well, seems like everything is going great and normal. And like many people, when I'm young, I do all sorts of things that in the long term will have a not so positive effect, but I can get away with it. So I do. And this is how I am still not getting myself to go to sleep as early as it would be good for me to do. And I know I had a recent set of circumstances come up where there was extra stress. I mean, I was in a program to learn how to do basically sales and marketing better. And I felt like there was this timeline that I had to keep up with my program. And so I was sometimes staying up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in an attempt to keep up with this program. And I know that this was not a good thing for my health in general and for my brain's health overall. I know, but I was still doing it anyway because I can, because I was able to do it. So I know that sleep is an area where I compromise because it's possible for me to do so and not have noticeable, immediate detrimental effects. Although there were still immediate detrimental effects. So it's like my ability to be clear and do things during the day at times when I'm staying up that late, it was obviously being affected, but I was still doing it. So that is the area that for me is going to be the most impactful in terms of supporting my long term brain health. I imagine that each person has an area that is the most important for them to address. There are some people who do not have their food intake as dialed in as mine is. And those are people for whom that is probably the most obvious, impactful action to take, to just eat better, to know what that means in terms of what actions to take. I have been, eating whole food for decades, so it's easy for me. But I have worked with people who are not as accustomed to that, for whom figuring out how to eat whole foods is a struggle because they're not accustomed to cooking. They don't have, they don't have the equipment, perhaps. They don't have the habits and the knowledge and the experience. They're just not used to doing it. So, for a lot of people, the most important action to take is actually addressing food. And when working with people, I encourage them. This is like, do it a little bit at a time. Don't expect yourself to get it all right immediately because that's unrealistic. Expecting yourself to be able to do that, bam, just have it all taken care of. That's setting yourself up for failure. But when it comes to making lifestyle changes like that, every piece of the change that you make has a big impact, a really big impact. So let's look at part of that example, okay? So if I am accustomed to eating primarily food out of packages, and there are a lot of people in the world who do that, or at least in North America. I don't know if I can say that's true about the world, but I know in North America, I'm in Canada, but I've spent a lot of time in the United States, and I go to the store and I see the food that people put on the belt at the checkout stand. So even though for me it makes sense to not eat all of the packages, cans, frozen, all that stuff and all the junk food, I know not to eat those things. But it's obvious to me at the store, seeing what people eat, that there are a lot of people out there that are still eating that food. And the companies wouldn't be making it if they weren't selling it. So the fact that it exists on the shelf means that there are a lot of people that eat that way. So if that is you, don't punish yourself or beat yourself up about it, but you can set an intention to make changes to how you eat. Again, knowing that this is going to be the single most impactful thing that you can do to protect your brain health, to protect your brain's ability to function well throughout your life into old age, and to decrease the likelihood at which dementia, and I'm not going to use the word that's most commonly heard about that, but basically losing the ability to think clearly and to remember things. Memory and clear thinking are so important for quality of life, for survival, for health. And so taking action to guard, to protect, to defend, to build your brain's ability to continue to function well. And food is the single most important thing that you can do. So if you do not have that dialed in, then one action at a time. Just cutting down the packaged foods that you consume that have preservatives and flavorings and all of the garbage. It's just, to be honest, garbage ingredients that those food companies put in their food to make it so you are addicted to the food. Because that's what they do. There's chemicals that are in the food that make it so irresistible that you're going to buy more. Chemical flavorings, natural flavors, those are usually chemicals. Very finely tuned chemical formulas that are designed to create the sensation of flavors that you want, that they know people love. And again, the fact that they exist on the shelf in plentitude means that it works. People buy them. There's a fascinating book that talks about these food chemicals. It's called The Dorito Effect. If you haven't read it, I listened to it in audiobook form. It's fascinating learning about what this industry does, not just about, flavor chemicals, but that's a significant part of it. That's this Dorito effect that he talks about. But, talking about, chickens and the chicken industry and just all these different things about this common food thing, the marketing, business, profit. That's all about making it so people buy the food that the companies want you to buy. And understanding that when I get those chemicals in my body, as far as my body is concerned, it's a poison. It's a toxin. It's something that my body doesn't know how to use for nutrition, for building my body, for energy. My body has to get rid of those chemicals, neutralize them and then secrete them away and then eliminate them. That's work for my body to do that. And if there is something that affects how my brain functions, like makes it so I can't think clearly, because sometimes I've had food that does that. It causes all kinds of reactions, makes it so my brain doesn't work well. So it's like clearly those things are not good for me. And so my body has to work to get rid of those. And if I have those packaged foods full of all that chemicals and garbage, if I have those all of the time, then my body is continually having to work to eliminate those toxins, eliminate those chemicals. At the same time, it's going to be deficient in the nutrients that it needs to be able to do all that detoxification and to give me energy and have my brain function and to be able to do all the things I need to do and to repair any injuries that I have. My body needs nutrients to be able to do all that. Proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, all of those things. Now, we think of carbohydrates as being vital nutrients, and we do need some of what carbohydrates provide. But to be honest, we can live without consuming carbohydrates or not much. It's not, you've heard of essential vitamins and minerals and essential amino acids. Those are nutrients that the body absolutely has to eat, consume to be able to build the body properly and function. Essential vitamins, essential minerals, and essential amino acids, essential fats, things that the body has to consume, has to eat. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. We can actually live without consuming carbohydrates, sugars, starches. But for a lot of people, carbohydrates, sugars, and starches are a significant percentage of the food they consume. But they're not required? They're not essential? Yes, it does provide nutrients and it provides fuel. But in too large a quantity, carbohydrates actually become damaging. They cause inflammation. They make it so the brain does not work as well. I've been listening to an educational series. I get a lot of these educational series about um, preventing Alzheimer's, the condition that most people are, oh, it's like, I don't want to get that. And it's true, you don't want to get that. Dementia and Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. You don't want that to happen in your life ever, really. And over again in this educational series, as well as in other educational series on similar topics, one of the big things that so many of those experts talk about is the importance of controlling blood sugar. Controlling blood sugar matters when it comes to protecting your brain's ability to function. It is theorized that Alzheimer's, the condition, the diagnosable condition, is actually a form of diabetes. It's a form of diabetes that most directly affects the brain and the brain's ability to function. So, what is diabetes? Diabetes is a messed up, basically, dysfunctions happening in metabolism of sugar, glucose specifically. Glucose is the form of sugar that is in the blood. And if the brain is having difficulty in managing glucose and blood sugar and fuel, being able to make energy for the brain to function, that ultimately can become Alzheimer's. Now, we're talking about something that happens probably over the course of decades. So it's possible that you may have, started into that process. I may have started into that process. That doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile making the positive changes that can prevent further decline. They have studies that show that people actually have the ability to reverse some of those indications, evidence of Alzheimer's, diagnosable Alzheimer's. They have seen people get improvements in their ability to think clearly, to remember. A lot depends on how much damage, how much degeneration has occurred. But wherever you are on that spectrum, it's worthwhile doing things to improve so that you retain as much memory, mental clarity, ability for your brain to function. You retain as much of it as you still have, and then possibly regain some of it back. And there are specialists, there are doctors that specialize in working with this. You can get tests that measure where you are on the spectrum and then recommend lifestyle practices, things that you can do, supplements, exercises, and things like that you can do to support brain function. And again, possibly be able to regain some of what may have become compromised or lost. Have hope. Alzheimer's is one of those conditions that is the most feared, the most worried about. Because we can see how debilitating it is. I remember having, a family member who was clearly well into dementia. I don't know that she was ever actually diagnosed as having Alzheimer's. I don't know if she had Alzheimer's, but she was clearly not having her brain working well and asking the same questions over and over and over again. Just not being not remembering people, not recognizing people, not recognizing faces, being disoriented when it came to knowing, like what time it is, what the year it is, where I am in life. You don't want to get there. So how can you protect yourself and your brain from functioning as optimally as possible? Because that's what this is all about. It's Thursday Tips for Thriving session. Okay, so again, food is the most important thing to do if you haven't handled that. And then, like me, I need to address sleep. Stress is another thing. If there is extraordinary stress, that is stressful for your brain and winds up having impacts on long-term ability to think clearly. Stress is a contributory factor to all health conditions. All of them, all of them, all of them, all of them. So if you have extraordinary amounts of stress, what can you do to help manage that? To get it under control? I totally understand if it's not completely able to be eliminated, just because that's the reality of life. And we all have some stress, but doing what I can to manage it, that's what I can do. And again, managing food, managing sleep are two things that also help with the stress. And like I talked about yesterday with Julie Turner of OgoFloat, floating is something positive you can do that can help with stress management. I don't know that anybody has done any studies for looking at floating when it comes to dementia. Julie might know. Watch my interview with Julie in the Thrive with Sandra Lee group. That was yesterday. So the recording is there. But whatever you can do to manage stress is also going to be really helpful. Now let's talk about what I do when it comes to biofluid tuning. Biofluid tuning uses tuning forks and sound in the energy field. And one of the things that I have been working on for quite a while, actually, with biofluid tuning is supporting brain function in various different ways. And it's been fascinating. So, I started working on brains for people with dyslexia. So, difficulty with reading, more complicated than that. But basically, it's an issue that comes up associated with reading. And I found that I was able to have an impact on how the brain functioned by working with the energy flow in the brain. Who knew? And I love working with people and helping their brains to function well. Thinking about stress and the impact of stress on brain function. And if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I talk about stress and biofield tuning all of the time. That when I am stressed, my energy is chaotic and stuck, and I'm not able to focus. All those things that go along with stress and overwhelm. And that biofield tuning is really terrific at helping to be releasing the stress and to be in the energetic flow and to feel more balanced and to be able to be in action. When it comes to making lifestyle changes like I've been talking about today, sometimes people are in this place of, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to change the food, all these things. Chaotic energy. And biofood tuning, I found, is effective in supporting people in being able to recognize what's important and focus on what's important and take the difficult actions. I've worked with people who, don't know how to eat the way I eat. They've never done it. They're in this place of, I don't know, I can't do that. There's a helplessness that comes with anything I don't know how to do. I know, I've been there myself. So it's like learning how to do this whole Facebook marketing thing. It's like I was first. And now that I know how to do it, there's still aspects I don't know how to do, but I'm much more, chill about it, much more in the flow. And like I've talked about many times, when my energy is about anything, my ability to do it is compromised. My ability to do what I feel like I need to do in any arena of life is chaotic, and I'm not going to be successful. So biofield tuning supports you in making whatever change you decide would be beneficial for you to take. You still have to decide what you want to do, but to set an intention once you've decided, and then moving forward with that. So biofield tuning can help you be more in alignment with what you intend to do so that you can have the life, the health, the mental function, the ability to remember that you want for the rest of your life. If you think biofield tuning might help you and your memory, mental clarity, then I have a group biofield tuning session coming up on Tuesday, the 12th, next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. If you are interested, then message me and I will give you more information, answer questions that you may have. It's going to be a small group and I record them. So you will get the recording that you can listen to later. I have found it really helpful. The people who've been in my groups find it really helpful that I talk a little bit about the issue ahead of time and these sorts of concerns or issues or places where people get stuck. And that kind of sets the context for the biofluid tuning session that we then do in the group. And these biofluid tuning group sessions have been really amazing and powerful and effective for people in the various arenas and topics where we have done them. So that is Tuesday, the 12th at 5:30 Pacific time. If you want to participate, anyone who participates, I actively include in the hologram for the session. And if you're not able to attend in person, then you are welcome to participate. I will include you in the healing, and you get the recording to listen to. You get the recording to listen to anyway, whether you're in person with us or not. And so you get to benefit from the healing in the session over and over again because you have the recording forever. So thank you. I hope this has been interesting and helpful. You learned something. If you've learned something, leave me a note because I'd love to hear what you think. And again, if you're interested in participating in the group session about memory and clear thinking, then let me know. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Breathe.